Okay. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Increasing Your Productivity in .NET with Visual Studio and Visual Studio for Mac. Woo! We're all excited to be here.
Yeah.
I'm Kendra Havens, and with me today,
Hello, my name is Mika Dumont.
we're PMs on .NET and Visual Studio, so we do design things and talk with customers like you, and make sure feedback is seen and enters into the product, and talk a lot, and go to conferences, and show cool things. Okay, let's get to it, actually. We have, like, no minutes. Is the timer counting down? Thanks, Lee.
Now it is, yeah.
Cool. All right, so we have a ton of stuff to go over today. So first we'll do IntelliCode, just show you that general demo. There's some new stuff currently in preview. If you could silence your cell phones. No. We have more analyzer stuff to talk about and how they are impacted with code cleanup editor config. We've added a new thing called the code analysis properties page. We'll show some code fixes and refactorings in Visual Studio for Mac, as well as live share, test explorer stuff, and some preview features, if you're good. We'll show it.
Only for good, yeah.
Okay, but first off.
Yeah, so let's talk about IntelliCode. IntelliCode brings AI into your coding experience. We trained an AI model on thousands of open source repositories on GitHub that generates suggestions based on your coding scenario. So let's go ahead and see this in action. So IntelliCode has dot completion. And here you can see that I'm getting starred recommendations based on this context. And IntelliCode also has argument completion as well, which was added very recently. And you can also build team models, which learn from your code bases, custom classes and types in order to provide personalized IntelliCode suggestions. And this experience is constantly growing in very exciting new ways, and we test out different features all the time, one of which I can demo right now is actually in preview. So here I'm checking if one of my properties is null before I run my test. And so instead of using the equality operator, which can be overloaded, I'm going to go ahead and use is.
Some C#7 pattern matching.
Sure is. And I'm using this in a few different places. I'm going to go ahead and fix that. And over here, you might notice that this is actually IntelliCode recognizing repeated edits and figuring out where this next edit can be inserted. So if I type control dot, I can also just go ahead and accept that edit.
Those murmurs are what we like to hear.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
Woohoo. Yeah, it's pretty sweet. There you go. Yeah, so that is IntelliCode's repeated edits. It is in preview, so definitely go ahead and check it out.
And IntelliCode works for a lot of other languages, not just C#. We have C++, Python, TypeScript, Java. It's a lot of the languages you use in Visual Studio. All of those are trained on open source repositories on GitHub. Cool.
Yeah.
So what powers? So IntelliCode just showed us a refactoring, which you access through a light bulb menu. What powers all of the refactorings we see?
Yeah, well, Kendra, I thought you would never ask. So all of these code fixes and refactorings are actually powered by the Roslyn analyzers. Roslyn is just another name for the .NET compiler platform, so you can think of them as the .NET compiler analyzers as well. And what analyzers do, they analyze your code and they report diagnostics and errors as you're typing. So you no longer actually have to build your code to know that you made an error. You can simply find that out in real time as you're typing. And analyzers also come with severity. So if you take a closer look over here at my error list, you can see that there is an error severity as well as a warning severity and an information severity. There's also a fourth severity called hidden or silent, but that wouldn't show up in my editor because it is hidden. And also over here at the squiggle, this is an analyzer. So they do typically manifest in the editor as squiggles. So when you're in Visual Studio and you see squiggles, those are actually the analyzers running in the background. And let's talk about some of these severities. And you can actually go ahead and configure these severities with an editor config. So over here, is my editor config, and an editor config is a single file that documents all of your code style options, and it lives at the root of your repository and can be managed by regular source control and shared amongst your entire team. Yeah, so we just added this new code style for using directives going inside or outside of a namespace. So let's say my team is super adamant about this using directive going inside a namespace. I'm going to just go ahead and bump up the severity of this to a warning. And you can do that directly in your editor config. And notice all of these warnings now I have in my error list, as well as all these green squiggles. So I can go ahead and type control dot, which is the quick actions and refactorings menu, and I can actually select move misplaced using directives. And there you go. It'll go right into my namespace. And notice, though, how I have some of these using directives and they're faded out. That is because these using directives are unnecessary. So again, I can type control dot and just accept the remove unnecessary usings code fix. Or I can use our one-click code cleanup, which is represented by this tiny little broom icon over here. So I can either click on that, or I can use the keyboard shortcut Control KE, and that will run code cleanup on my current file. But let's say I actually want to run code cleanup on my entire solution. You can just simply right-click on the solution name and select Analyze and Code Cleanup, and then select Run Code Cleanup, and now those using directives have disappeared in my entire solution. Yeah. And you may have noticed this next warning that I have over here. This Visual Studio is letting me know that I need to add a serializable attribute to this class. Now, this
I haven't seen that one. Is that new?
Yeah, so it's actually not built into the IDE. It is a third-party analyzer. It is pretty much, it's part of a NuGet package called Microsoft Code Analysis FXCOP Analyzers. And what we did was we ported all the most popular code quality FXCOP rules into this NuGet package. And there are a lot of third-party or NuGet packages that have analyzers a part of them. And if you go ahead and grab those off of NuGet, they will just live under here, under this dependencies node, under this analyzers node over here. And you can even just open up this node, and these are actually all the different analyzers. And you can also right-click on them and set the severity of these analyzers here as well.
So not only can I configure how built-in analyzers are shown as silent warning or error, I can also get third-party analyzers that are maybe built by different framework owners, stuff I'm taking dependencies on. They write analyzers to teach us how best to use what tools they develop. So I can have third-party analyzers actually affect what I see in the IDE.
Exactly, yeah.
Whoa.
I know, it's pretty mind-blowing. And a brand new feature that I'm super excited to show is the ability to configure third-party or built-in analyzers directly in the editor. You can configure the severity for these. So here, if I place my cursor and type control dot, I can select configure severity, and I can go ahead and, let's say, bump this up to an error. And that actually will update my editor config. So this will actually be added in my editor config, and the severity of it also will now be changed to an error. And if you don't have an editor config, it will go ahead and generate one for you. So it's pretty sweet. And a lot of people have asked for third-party analyzers to break builds, but not necessarily show up as they're typing. So we have this code analysis project properties page. And so if I right-click on my project name, select properties, code analysis, I can actually deselect run on live analysis. And that error just disappeared. But because run on build is still selected, if I actually run my build will fail. And that is because we now allowed third-party analyzers to break builds.
So you can kind of dial up how severe something is showing up in your code base, and you can control when you actually see it. So if it's too distracting when you're live typing, you can have it break your build. So you know at least someone will never push to your repository because they shouldn't break hopefully they would never push a breaking build to your repository. So it's a different kind of dial that we've set up.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I'm next. Okay, cool. So how many of you came to specifically see Visual Studio for Mac features? For Mac? Okay, a handful. Cool, cool. So we'll go ahead and switch over to my Mac. So all of the analyzers that we just showed, we've checked in a ton of new ones recently, over 100 actually in the past year. So if you feel like you've been missing something, we want to learn what that is. And a lot of these refactorings are automatically showing up in Visual Studio for Mac, because Visual Studio for Mac is actually now sharing some of the core editor engine with Visual Studio, which is cool. So they'll just automatically get a ton of the refactorings that we implement. So one of these is converting, it was Alt-Enter, there we go, converting switch statement to switch expression. So switch expression was a new C# 8 feature. So it really cleanly cleans up your switch statements, which is nice. We have a tutorial online. You can access it at aka.ms/netfeatures2019. That's one place where I have a bunch of basically code that will all trigger refactorings one in a row. So it's really simple to run through on your local machine, figure out what you can actually start using, kind of get your head around it. It's basically like the release notes, but in code. It's been fun. Okay, so we also have generating a parameter. So we have tons of different generate variable refactorings. Generate parameter is one of the ones we recently added. This one is fun. So this is a single line comment. So if I type, let's see, Control-Shift/ or Command-Shift-K. Oh, I didn't translate all of these into my Mac keyboard. So I won't be able to trigger all of these. Okay, so we have splitting if statements. So Alt-Enter. And let's see, split into if statements. So if you have multiple conditions within one if statement, you can split on the binary operator. And if you place your cursor back inside of nested if statements and hit Alt-Enter, it'll also help you merge with an outer if statement where that's valid. So your compiler is actually helping you know that, oh, I'm not changing the meaning of my code just the way it's written. Pretty sweet. Okay. And lastly, we also have wrapping. We have a ton of different wrapping options, actually, that are all new. So here I can wrap an expression on binary operators, just kind of clean up the code. I see one furrowed brow, at least. You can also change indents and alignments with this a lot. Yeah, so you can kind of figure out what you most want to use. We have wrapping expressions for arguments, parameters. These are binary expressions, as well as calls. So if you have a long call list, you can...
chain calls.
Yeah, chained calls. You can align all of the dots in that chained call, which is pretty fun. So Visual Studio for Mac is constantly getting more improvements. They're really focused on making sure .NET Core is a great development experience. They do have a booth here. And is Syed in the crowd? Did he sneak in the back?
Is he here?
Oh, I was gonna make him answer any questions. Yeah. Anyway, we'll keep going. Cool. So the next thing I wanted to show off is Live Share. How many of you have heard of Live Share? Awesome. All of you have used it. How many of you have used it? Okay, cool. We'll run through it again. So Live Share is, again, the collaborative peer programming experience that Visual Studio has cooked up. So if you go ahead and start a collaboration session. Oh, that's right, sorry. I'm logged into a different account because of the keynote demo that I did earlier.
Okay.
Dang it. Can I just, oh, I gotta add an account, I gotta authenticate. Mika, fill time, tell jokes. Do you know any good jokes?
We can also run it on my computer. Or
we could, and I could join your sharing link. Let's do that.
Let's do it, okay.
So, well, now on Mika's computer.
Yeah, okay, so.
Oh, I just got it.
Oh, you did?
It's okay, though. Okay. So Mika's joining, so what she's doing is generating a URL, and she's pasting that to me in Teams. And if we switch back to my computer, when I click on this link, it'll actually ask me which development environment I want it to open in if I haven't set it already. Right now I have it set to open in Visual Studio Code. So it takes all of your preferences and gives an entire coding context that is basically streamed live from Mika's machine. So that's loading. You actually have a lot of access with this.
Yeah. I have read and write access. I can also access your terminal and your server, but I mean,
ad block.
I think we're at that
doing
point
the work of God
in our friendship where we can share terminal and server access with each other, so that's good.
We've obviously ran through this 1,000 times before. Okay, so I'm in your code base, so I can see Mika's cursor. And if I type where Mika's cursor is, I'll just like add a comment. Hi there. We can see it showing up on Mika's machine if I know which machine to flip to. That's not the right one. I meant to press 6. I briefly pressed 5. Okay, yeah. So you can see my code showing up on Mika's machine. And again, this is a lot of access, especially now that if you, can I, mind if I?
Oh, that you're gonna?
Yeah, go ahead and launch the Visual Studio Terminal. Since the Visual Studio Terminal is indeed built in, it has all of the access that you've launched Visual Studio with in your terminal. So share with people that you trust. Yeah, it's pretty good. Okay, so I'll close out of this, switch back to my machine. Okay, huge improvement that we want to talk about is the new Test Explorer. So Test Explorer got a major update in Visual Studio 2019, completely new UI. I see some small claps. We're pretty excited about it. So we completely rewrote this to better handle extremely large test sets. We actually had our tests capping at like 100,000 items, and we had customers come to us and say, that's not enough. We thought surely no one would have over 100,000 tests. That's bananas.
You're wrong.
Roslyn has 86,000, and we thought we were strange. I mean, what's another word?
Not strange.
Detail-oriented. Yeah, but so they capped it, so we had to, rewrite the window to handle a lot larger things. And in doing so, we also wanted to make sure it was really easy to navigate something extremely large. So a lot of people have highly nested hierarchies and greatly use like namespaces to organize their test suites and all of that, and we wanted all of that to be really easy to use. So we added these filter buttons, which also just help everyday usage, filtering down to only the failed tests. That's great, and it's very customizable. So you might have noticed I have a target framework column here. That's new. Where's my duration column? So you can right-click. You can choose which columns appear. I could hide my target framework. I have traits. You can drag and drop them. My group by got a huge update. So group by used to be flat. You could only choose one thing. Now you can choose multiple things that organize your tests into a tier, which is awesome. Okay, so, and you can also choose these completely dynamically. So the order in which you pick these is how it organizes, or I could pick a preset that we have here at the top. So here I'm organizing to project namespace and then class. So project, namespace, and class is how it organizes tests. Pretty sweet. Okay, one of the other things we've added is playlists. So here I have really in-depth playlist handling. Playlists also are a lot more, you don't need to save a .playlist file every time you use them. They're impermanent, so if I exit out of it, it'll just go away. And playlists have sort of the same group by options, the same kind of customization if you wanted to completely have a list that was completely separate from your Test Explorer. And not only does playlists get a new window, but live unit testing also gets a new window. Who's heard of live unit testing? Should I go through the spiel again? I'll go through it again. Okay, cool. So live unit testing is an enterprise-only feature. It runs tests automatically in the background as you type, and it only runs the tests that you've actually impacted with those certain code changes. So as soon as I start it up, it reruns all of my tests, and now it's listening to my entire code base, and as I make a code change, it's going to run only the tests that were impacted, only the tests that cover that line. And as if that wasn't enough, it's giving me feedback on the tests in my editor for all of the tests that cover a certain line.
Nice.
Cool? Cool. Okay. Yeah, so if I made a code change here, and all of these tests would rerun, and they're still passing. Cool. So live unit testing also got its own window. So before, live unit testing is really powerful, but you only want to include tests that are currently unit tests that aren't integration tests, because an integration test covers your entire code base. So any code change you made would always be rerunning it all the time. You don't want that. That's why we named it live unit testing. Cool, okay. But before, when you could include or exclude a lot of files, we didn't always call out what was currently in the live test set. And now we have a window to manage all of that. And it operates, it's really similar looking to the playlist. It still has like the filter buttons and group by and all of that. But instead of having run buttons, it just has like stop, because it's always going to run when it needs to be run. When it detects that its test result might be outdated because of code changes you've made. Cool. Okay, so that was live unit testing. I do just want to call out, are any of you .NET Standard developers and have run into the issues? Got a couple hands in the back of creating tests for .NET Standard and realizing that your tests now need to compile for multiple target frameworks. So you add multiple references for different target frameworks in the file, and before, our test explorer would be extremely confused. Like, it would still compile and it would run, but it wouldn't show those tests and different test results per target framework, because it's kind of like a multiplier there. Following along? Cool. So now it does. So now we have target frameworks, and we have a column that will actually show what target frameworks you have open. So if I have a test that's targeting both like 3.1 and Net Core 2.1, or even Net 4.6.1, even like Net Framework tests, they will still show up in the Test Explorer. Cool. Okay, Mika. I think they've been really good.
Yeah, should we give them some preview features?
Should we do some preview features before
let's
we?
do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Whoa, you're 6? 6.
Yeah. All right. So the very first preview feature, I'm going to show you guys. You will have to turn on in Tools Options, setting the tab layout. So this is vertical tabs. So you now can get back that line of vertical space by docking the tabs either to the left or the right. You can also group these tabs as well. And yeah, it's pretty awesome. And that's in preview. You have to just turn it on in Tools Options.
That was the #1 developer community item. Honestly, that's the only thing anyone wanted. No.
That's the only request we got.
But as developers get wider and wider screens, we have tons of horizontal space, and people wanted back that vertical space. I think some people also find it's a lot easier to read when it's all just in a list that way.
Yeah.
I mean, my brain doesn't work that way yet, but maybe it should. You guys let me know. Okay. What else do we have in preview?
Yeah, so we also now have this new go to base command, and go to base allows you to navigate up the inheritance chain. It's available in, I don't know if you saw that, but it's available in the right-click context menu, or you can use the keyboard shortcut Alt-Home on the element that you want to navigate the inheritance hierarchy on. And this also works for method overrides, so here. And if there is more than one result, this tools window option will open, and you can just choose which results you would like to hop to. And the next feature I'm going to show was actually built by one of our very own interns this past summer.
Yay, interns!
Okay. So this is add null checks for all parameters. So here I'm going to type control dot, and I can actually select the option to add null checks for all parameters. And this will actually add if statements that check the nullity of all the nullable non-checked parameters. So it'll go ahead and do that all for you in just one click. All right, and you may have noticed I have these XML comments over here.
That looks bulky. What is going on?
Yeah, so this now has some style options. So here, if I hover my iTweetAlert interface, you can see that I have italics as well as bolding. I have bullets and a clickable link.
Clickable links and XML comments. Your documentation can link to something useful.
Yeah,
yes,
in quick info.
Yes. Okay.
And this also works for method overrides. So here I have a method with this XML comment, and this method will also inherit that method's XML comments because it is overriding it. Yeah.
Inherit docs.
And this,
no?
And then, yeah, exactly. And with this new inherit doc keyword, you can actually put that XML comment above. Here I have it above my TweetAlert class, but I'm setting it to equal the iTweetAlert interface, so it can inherit the XML comments from that interface. So if I hover over TweetAlert class, quick info will display the XML comments from it as well. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Inherited XML comments. Are we not freaking out right now? Did we not leave enough pauses? This is huge, guys. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, one more and we can show Visual Studio Online at the end if we have time.
Yeah, okay, fine. So I will show you guys. This is actually a sneak peek. So coming soon is the ability to search remote repositories from Visual Studio. So this is integrated with search and navigation. So this works with go to implementation as well as find in files and control Q search. So let me go ahead and just show you what this looks like. So here I have an interface, and let's say I want to rename this interface and I want to see if it is being used in a different repository. I can go ahead, I'm going to go to its implementation right now. Let's see. And this tools window will open, and you can see that this origin over here is coming from my solution, but if I scroll down a bit, you can see that this one's actually coming from a remote repository. It says repository. So if I go ahead and double click this, Visual Studio will actually go ahead and grab that file for me, even though it's not on my local machine. So hovering over this .cs file name, you can even see that this is actually living in my cache. It's living in my app data local. It is not a part of my solution. So I can search and view files that are part of a remote repository without having to leave Visual Studio. And let's say I want to learn more about this interface. Over here, I can actually use find in files. So let's do that. And find in files was completely rewritten to run way faster. Find is now twice as fast for general searches and 10 times faster for regex searches.
10 times faster. I'm just your hype man over here.
I know, you really are, yeah. And you can now.
Okay.
And you can now exclude files and directories as well. And with this new My Repositories dropdown, I can search for repositories online that aren't on my local machine. And this, again, will give me all the results for repositories that are remote, not on my local machine.
So where are these repositories? Are they up in Azure that we're searching across? So it's everything within an Azure project right now. We're thinking about GitHub integration later. Again, all of this is a sneak peek. It's not even released yet.
This is hot off our developers' machines. So
sneak peek, very hot. Yeah. Sneak peek, remote repository search on remote repos. Cool.
Yeah. And also with Visual Studio's Control Q search, you can now search for code. So you can search for files as well as types and members. And since we're talking about remote repository search coming soon, Control Q will also be able to find code that is remote and not on your local machine. And you can see it looks like this, and you can see the cloud and saying repository, which means it's remote. So that was go to implementation, find in files, Control Q search for remote repositories in Visual Studio.
Sweet.
Sneak peek, yeah.
Sneak peek, okay. So that's not released yet. Other than code search and what I'm going to show you next, everything we've showed besides that, you can go and grab right now. It's in like Visual Studio 2019 preview. The next thing I'm going to show you is a little bit of Visual Studio Online. Now, this has been basically the main question at the booth so far. What is Visual Studio Online? Is it coming to Visual Studio? Is it just a Visual Studio Code thing? It's both. Right now, Visual Studio Code you can go and get. Visual Studio like on Windows, that one, you have to sign up for a private preview. You can get there using aka.ms/vsonline. It's pretty easy to remember. We'll ask you to take a survey, figure out what you're using it for and that stuff. But let's say I want to, like I've saved a bunch of time with my productivity tips, and I want to completely switch context for a bit. I want to work on a C++ project, one of my favorite ones up in the open source, MySQL, and I don't have any of the dependencies or anything, any of the build artifacts or anything that I need to run it on my local machine. I can connect to a Visual Studio Online environment, and then my local instance of Visual Studio becomes like a front end for what's happening in the cloud. So my compiler, my debugger, even my IntelliSense, my code search, my terminal, that's all connected to a development environment running on Azure, which is pretty sweet. So this is opening a huge C++ solution. MySQL is over 38,000 files. It's about 3 gigs when you're downloading the repo. And usually it opens super fast, but we might have let the demo machines go.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, go to sleep. So it'll open this, and I might need to reconnect again. But straight off the developer's machines, we get only the finest stuff, only the hottest stuff for these demos. I'm going to go ahead and try again. It loaded in the Solution Explorer, but it didn't actually open the whole thing. So let's go and connect. And I have a different Azure instance that I might be able to open if this doesn't connect. I'm still logged in as MS speaker, so that's good. Oh, it's probably having that identity thing because I had to log out earlier.
Oh, right, yeah.
Might need to log out and log back in. Well, anywho, what I was going to show was C++ development, getting all the productivity tools I know and love. So I was going to show off some IntelliSense and some search. We're still working on getting like debugging and everything working pretty smoothly. As you can see, also the connection working smoothly. But basically, when I run it in terminal, you would see that I have 16 processors on my cloud environment, while locally I only have 8. So I get this cloud horsepower while I'm developing. Oh my gosh. Okay, never mind. I'll just show it. I was not expecting that to happen. I had long ago given up. No. So I'll wait for that search to start.
Oh.
Maybe it'll all be slow because, oh no.
Oh, there you go.
It's going. It's doing its best. Yay, okay, so I can open up some C++ code. Oh my gosh. So I can also like hop to a different line number. So I got some search, I got some navigation. And as I type this, you'll notice that I'm getting like no latency in typing, even though this source code is not on my machine. It's up in Azure. So normally when you're typing maybe on like a VM, you'd experience a lot of latency and a lot of moving the mouse and you rooting for it to get to where you need it to on the screen. You don't get any of that with this because we're only streaming like this lightweight context that you need to develop, sort of like how when Mika and I were doing live share, she was streaming her entire development context to my machine. It's basically the same thing, except you don't have, she's not a host, I have a host up in the cloud. And I'm still getting like, whoa, sorry, too much completion, whoa there. Oh, good, no, good, yeah. You saw it for like a split second.
Okay.
There it is, okay. We have IntelliSense and IntelliCode working just as normal. And if I went ahead and opened the Visual Studio Developer command prompt, and yes, okay. So we do have a terminal built into Visual Studio nowadays. Yes, woo, that was a good one. If I went ahead and printed out how many processors I have on this machine, you'll see I have 16, and if I did this locally and launched, oops, no, Bing, get out of me. Okay. And I launched, what, Einstein's Bagels? Come on, Kendra. Woo. So if I launched my Windows terminal on my local machine and I printed out the same thing, I'm getting 8 processors, right? So I'm able to use all of that power in this online environment, which is awesome. So normally, if I tried to build this locally, it would max out my CPU. PowerPoint would crash. I'd just have to move to questions and act like nothing wrong happened. So if I went and built this, and I wouldn't be able to do anything else on my machine for like 30 minutes. But now I'm building it, right? Actually, let me open output so you can see all of the random text printing that no one ever reads. Yeah, and I open Task Manager, check out my CPU. It's not at all maxed out. All of that stuff is happening in the cloud. So I didn't have to switch contexts at all. I was able to connect to a place that already had all of the dependencies and stuff set up. So if I had something going on in production that I needed to immediately connect to an environment for, I could have that environment already set up on my machine and not have to get anything locally installed and set up. So no context switching, that's what we're going for. It's not using any of the local resources on my machine, and I'm able to use the productivity tools that I know and love, IntelliSense Debugger, Search, all of that. That's
wow.
Visual Studio Online environments.
It's amazing, yeah.
I'm so excited. Okay, so we wanted to leave a lot of room for questions because we kind of cover a lot more content. Do we want to, wait, which one is yours? 6?
Yeah.
I'll remember all of this. Okay, so we wanted to leave a lot of time for questions. Here are resources. Do you want me to talk about resources?
Yeah, go for it if you
There
want.
they are.
Here are the talks. If you want to look at all of our new refactorings and quick fixes. And we're also open source, so those rosin analyzers, all of that is open source, so definitely go there. You can even create your own analyzer if you want. We're also on Twitter, Visual Studio or Visual Studio Mac. So tweet at us, let us know if you have any questions. And if you ever have bugs, you can go ahead and file bugs by using the little send feedback icon. And we actually triage those ourselves. And
We do.
Yeah.
We read the heartfelt comments that everyone sends. They're actually really good.
Yeah.
We have high quality bug producers, way better than what Windows gets. Oh my gosh. Because all of you are developers. Okay, it's good.
Yeah.
Anywho, so we can go over to questions now. Yeah. Oh, if you want to use the mic up there, there's mics on each row of the room. That way, people online watching, hello future, can hear.
you. Yeah.
Hello, check.
Hi.
Okay, so question is about live unit testing.
Yes.
So it kind of follows on nCrunch's heels, you know? So
Yeah.
nCrunch is kind of cool because it allows you to configure the number of cores that you have assigned to your shadow build. And in Visual Studio 2017, as I recall, it did not allow that configuration, does it, in 2019?
Nope.
Okay. So
But it is on our backlog. Yeah.
does it shadow build as you type and run the unit tests as you type, or do you have to save?
It's as we type. It's not as you save.
Okay. So the second question then that follows on that is it available in Visual Studio Online? Can you run your live unit testing while you're online?
We are working on it. As you see, even my connection I was a little bit worried about. It's coming in pretty hot. We do have like the Test Explorer working on Visual Studio Online and stuff. Not a demo setup that will reliably produce it working online, but
Coming at some point?
it's, yeah, it's, oh gosh, especially, because live unit testing, the tough thing about it is it'll run your battery down a little more because you're doing a lot more with each edit, so we'd love to put that in the
I'd love to
cloud.
quit paying an extra license fee for nCrunch, you know, so.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, yeah. Good feedback. Yeah, I can repeat your question if you can't get out.
I'll just jump.
Yeah.
So with the Visual Studio Online, what size of solution are you guys targeting for like initial release?
That is such a good question.
Our master solution is like 500 projects, and
Yeah.
it destroys our laptops when we try to load it up. So
So,
Solution filters could be like a good.
solution filter, are you using any solution? Oh, sorry, the question for those online and those in the room who couldn't hear was, we have a massive solution with 500 projects in one thing, and we're wondering if Visual Studio Online is targeting a certain solution size. And we wanted to tell you first about solution filters. There we go. You can choose not to load certain projects that you're not working in, and it'll open Visual Studio a lot faster. So a lot of times people are only going to work in a subset of projects in the total solution. You can unload a bunch of them, save it as a .slnf file. You know about this?
yeah,
Okay, cool. You're like, we know. Okay. Cool. So I don't know what size of project we're targeting. I think it'll be very large. Yeah, I don't have any official announcement yet, but we have that in mind of people hating to open solutions on a local machine. We definitely have people who are getting into VMs that are massively built out just so they can open solutions, and we want to address that. Cool. Thanks.
Same feature on the Visual Studio Online environments.
Yeah.
Are those intended to be multi-user environments?
They can be right now. Right now, if someone else logs on, it boots me off. So it's kind of like
One
sort of
person
like a
at a time.
VM remote desktop. Yeah. But if you file feedback, please let us know if you want like multiple people working in one thing. Because in LiveShare,
Where
you
can
can
people
have
go to-
6 people join in one. It's using the same technology. You can have 6 people join one session, and I think we're bumping it up to 30 people joining one session because we have like classrooms in mind for that.
I think currently in preview you can do 30, up to 30. Where can people online like see information on Visual Studio Online?
Oh, also aka.ms/vs online.
Yeah. So definitely check that out too. And
That's the only URL that I know. Okay. Yeah.
Actually, I have another question with that same thing. So those are hosted in Azure, right? And they're essentially VMs.
Yes.
Are they going to be in the same VM system? Like you can save the image?
Yes, we definitely want to be able to easily like clone these environments so that if you just have a new person on your team, you can just say, oh, here's your clone and you're set up and they never need to install anything. That would be so cool. As far as how it actually works today, it's on our backlog. We'll keep thinking about this. Good feedback. Yeah, right now, today, I'm not sure it's exactly clonable. I haven't seen like them take us through the interface. There's a bigger talk on Visual Studio Online. It's going to be by Nick Molnar. I think it's tomorrow. There's a 15-minute session today, and there will be a longer one tomorrow. And hopefully, he'll do the same demo that I just did, so that'll be fun. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns? We got 5 minutes because we sped through it.
Yeah, we did.
We cover a
here's
large
a question
breadth, and
here.
we can, yeah.
So, is there going to be like a browser? Is there a difference between getting the VS Online through Visual Studio and then just being on the browser and doing it?
Yes.
Okay.
Here's our offering. So Visual Studio Online, we want to have a local development environment configured. So all of your user preferences are still what you have set up on your machine, and it's just connecting as a front end to the cloud. Having C# actually compile in the browser, we are really excited about. We do have a product called Blazor. Who's heard of it? That's C#. Nice. So that's C# directly compiling down to WebAssembly. And that is currently, Blazor WebAssembly will be in preview in May 2020. So that'll be exciting. For right now, we do have lots of Blazor demos. If you have ever used our docs in try.net, 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 that is a lot of our C# docs compiling in the browser. So it's not for like full featured development because a lot of people want an IDE at that point. But we do have C# in the browser, so people can easily check it out. Cool. But check out Blazor, guys. It's so cool. Okay. We have a few hands raised. I'll go with you first. Yeah.
For the cross-repository search, is there any thought of putting that in CodeLens for references?
So I'll repeat the question. For
Yeah.
cross-repository search, is there any thought of putting it in CodeLens for references? What do you think? I'm not sure. We can get back.
Yeah, we could definitely like sync up. You can give me your email, and we can ask the person who owns it and have them look back to you about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the question over here? Yeah. How does the host prices and licensing work for VSO? I'm not sure. Yes, so you will eventually be paying for the cloud power that you're connecting to, just like you'd pay for a VM. Not sure how we're actually going to come up with the scheme. We're just trying to get the developer tools in there, get that they have value, spread the word, and then we'll figure it out. Oh yeah, so the question was, could I just connect with like a free VS Code instance to a paid for VSO instance? Yeah, I'm sure that'll be possible. We won't start, yeah. That sounds good. Here's Kendra making promises for a product she doesn't own. Okay. Good times. Well, thank you guys so much for coming. This has been brilliant.